He might be muted on his own end.
Yeah, I've been in some meetings where it kind of went bad too. Like you're explaining, like just somebody's yelling at their kids or something like that, or the
Oh yeah.
dogs are barking, you know.
Well, all the kids are on school these days, and it's other
Mhm.
siblings in the background, children in the background.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly.
I've got my background up because I'm sharing the office, and you don't need to.
Yeah.
My poor husband's gonna be
I
walking in and out.
I ordered a green screen on one of those like oh, like the backdrop kind of the ones that pop up and down rather than having the two posts that are holding it on either side. So, but I think it'll be here tomorrow.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, I want to get some sort of setup. I've seen more people with like thoughtful Zoom um office backgrounds that are obviously set up to look good in video presentations, and
Yeah.
it's a cool effect.
I just get jealous with seeing everybody like laying on the beach and stuff like that in there. So,
Right, right. I'm going to be asking everyone to turn off video once we get started to um, conserve bandwidth too, but it's fine while everyone's logging in. Just to
yeah, until we
say
get
hi.
going.
Let me see.
Yeah, so what I see like 121 people registered. So we'll see how many that really come.
That's a lot, but usually it's about 50%. So
Mhm.
we'll see.
I've been hosting a SEO roundtable on Sundays, and
Uh-huh.
it's like one or two people register, but it's like there's at least half the time I'm there by myself. You know, so like, okay, I guess I got to do it today, and then in the end, I'm let down by there's no participants.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, but I didn't really do a lot with it, so it's just free time for me. So, but I learned from that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a free event, so we can't, require people. We can't really make there any
Yeah.
requirements to RSVP. So,
Mhm.
and if people RSVP, then it goes on their calendar, and of course, you want to
Yeah.
allow them that.
Yeah, my wife, she teaches French it used to be out of her house, but now she teaches it online. And then her answer is like, well, if you charged them money
Yep.
for it, they'll be there then. Like, yeah,
Yep.
but a lot less
That's how it
people sign
works.
it up. Yeah, I was thinking of all these meetings like this, and it's like I was just contemplating it. It's like I bet you there's going to be a platform that's going to be so awesome, and it's going to be free. But the only thing is they're going to put advertisers in it somehow. So during
Yeah.
intermission and around the sidebar or
Ugh.
whatever, they're going to beat Zoom and all the other ones for some reason. Some way that'll. I bet you that'll happen.
Yeah, I'd rather just pay, I think. It's
Yeah, me
it's
too.
worth it to
Yeah.
be able to do a quality video presentation.
I would rather pay too, but I think that'll be coming. It's just like YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Do you pay for YouTube? I don't. Probably most
No.
people don't.
I see a lot more ads than I want to.
Yeah. I guess when I do a search for something, I find a video. I like to see associated videos instead of all the other things that are in my interest on the side.
I share a Google account with my 12-year-old daughter, so we have a really weird Google
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah, that's a
history.
different mix.
I try not to look too closely at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we need to make more accounts for our Netflix thing too. It's like, watch this one because you watched this one. Like, no, I didn't. I certainly don't want
No,
to watch this other one.
I really don't care that much about Pokemon. I
Hmm.
really don't.
Yeah.
You want to go a couple more minutes, Bruce, or start
Whatever
right
you
at
think
6?
is best. I'm ready to
No,
start
I
whenever.
think like 2 minutes. Okay, somebody has their radio playing.
That was me. I turned it
Oh,
off.
thanks, thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah.
I turn on my video, but you have to watch me eat.
That's fine. We're gonna ask everyone to disable their videos anyway, just to
Yeah. It'll make
remove
it
visual
easier. Yep.
distraction.
I used to use GoToMeeting all the time in the past, and then when it kind of evolved into everybody having video on, I just kind of like normal day in the park, but it failed so miserably, and that's why I had to evolve to Zoom.
I'm liking the new Google Meet though.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Just don't know where all the buttons are yet. Over there.
Well, and they move them every few weeks too to
Yeah,
keep you
I
on your
know.
toes.
Well, there's less buttons than Zoom. I use it
Yeah.
every day. I'm using it every day.
Oh, okay, cool. There's not a premium version of that, right? It's just
I think
all
there
this.
So
I think there is,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
but I don't know what you get for it.
Yeah, we can get started now maybe and just,
All right.
I'll just introduce myself a little bit.
Now let me get started with the announcements and stuff,
Sure,
and
yep.
then I'll turn it over to you. All right. Yep. Hey everyone, thanks for coming this evening. This is the WordPress Naperville meetup Zoom presentation. We're doing SEO tonight. A few things first. Next month, we're going to be having Michelle Schulp, a rather well-known WordPress designer who's currently based in Minneapolis. If you've been to any WordCamps, you would recognize her as the designer who has pink hair, who frequently speaks at WordCamps. She will be doing an Ask Me Anything about the Gutenberg blocks. So you can look at our meetup page to give her a question in the comments or to RSVP to that. And that's going to be next month on the 3rd Tuesday of October, the 20th at 6:30 Central Time. Tonight, Bruce is going to be doing the presentation. I'm going to ask that everyone keep themselves muted and turn off your video. If you have a question for Bruce, please type it into the chat. And when Bruce stops for break, we'll just go through all those questions and get everyone caught up. Sometimes he does answer a question during the course, questions can be answered during the course of the presentation. And we'll make sure to loop back and get everyone whose questions weren't addressed. This is being recorded. When the recording has finished processing, we will be putting it on the Chicagoland WordPress Meetups YouTube channel and also posting it in the comments on the meetup page. So you'll be seeing that in a day or two, however long it takes the video to process. And I'm going to mute myself, turn my camera off, and turn you over to Bruce.
All right, thank you there, Claire. And Claire's she hopefully is going to manage some of the question and answers because I'll just kind of get caught up and I'll avoid that. So that'll be good. All right, so thanks for joining everybody. Bruce Jones here. I've been doing search engine optimization for probably about 16 years now. I owned a digital marketing agency. We did web designs and SEO and all the stuff like that. And I sold that 3 years ago. I ran that for 10 years. And so I saw some of the challenges related to SEO. And so I have a new business now where I'm more of an SEO coach or an SEO trainer, training business owners and marketing departments and things like that in SEO. I see there's a lot of missed opportunities there. There's some easy stuff that people can do themselves that make a big difference, and you don't have to pay a high price search engine optimization company to get that solved for you. All right. So this, presentation is really just going to be about some of the basics of SEO. Of course, it goes a lot deeper than that. And one sort of division I should talk about is you're probably aware of when you do a Google search and it has any sort of a local intent that Google puts the Google My Business listing up at the top of the search results there. And so the things that you actually do inside of Google My Business is probably worth half of the SEO there. So we're going to talk today about all the things that you do on your website, and that helps assist when it comes to local SEO. But you really need to optimize your Google My Business listing, which is not covered in this presentation today. But I put some resources there of, some of the other things that I've done, other presentations and such that just talk about Google My Business by itself, right? Okay, so first question is, what is SEO? It's not rocket science. It's not smoke and mirrors. It's really just a way of tricking search engines, and you can't even just say search engines anymore because Google has, I don't know, somewhere between 80 or 90% of the market share. So, when I see all the SEO spammers hitting me up with saying emails like, we can make you #1 in all of the major search engines, like there's only one major search engine, dude. So like that's the script from many years ago. Google is the only thing that you need to beat these days. And the right way to be number one is not all the tricks and things like that. It's really just to be the right answer. So if people are asking Google a question and you compile the answer on your website, or the resource that answers that question, and you answer it the most completely, you'll probably be number one automatically for that particular term, especially if you have a website that has more authority because you've answered other popular questions in the past, that type of thing. It's a kind of a big mix here, but really it comes down to, it's not just these little stupid things that you might do to help you with SEO. It's more of just thinking about who you're trying to help, who's your target audience and what are their questions and what's the best way to answer it for them. All right, so there's really three main parts of SEO. Everything related to search engine optimization can be broken down into these three main categories. The first question is keywords or keyword phrases. It's not just one word, it could be 5 words in a string along type of a term there like that. But figuring out what are people searching for that's related to what you want to be number one for. Oftentimes when I would ask a business owner of like, what do you want to be number one for? The things that they say either are search or phrases that are too competitive or nobody's really searching for those anyways. So doing the homework, which is kind of scientific a little bit, to figure out what are the right keywords that works for you. It isn't always the highest volume keyword or the keyword that the most people are searching for. It's more of the keyword that exactly describes what your offer is or what this page is about or what this blog post is about. So that's keywords. And once you got keywords figured out, then the next step is content. So where do you use those keywords? Just about everywhere there's an opportunity to. Most websites, like probably I would say 90% of websites out there have not been search engine optimized by anybody. And a lot of it is just nobody took the time to fill in the blanks. So there's a lot of blanks that are in the back end of your website that is an opportunity to use a keyword or, to describe and answer a question inside of there. But oftentimes people don't take the time to do that. And content even could be something like, what's your business description that you use when you add your business to a directory like Yelp? That's still content. That's still, that helps you rank better if you put the right keyword there in your business description. And then the third thing that's part of SEO is backlinks. So that's where another website has a link to your website. Back in the day when all of the search engines were pretty even, Google was the one that used how many other websites are linking to that as a ranking factor. And that's the one. So in the end, Google was the search engine that won. And they did that by measuring how many backlinks you have going to you, because they figured that all things being equal, and there's 2 different websites there, and all of their friends are, people on the internet are quote unquote talking about website B, then everybody likes website B more than website A apparently, and so they should put website B at the top of the search results. That's kind of the basics really. And so that anytime that you have a backlink going to your website, it's like a vote of confidence, and that passes authority to your website. Sometimes people get confused with, oh, well, I got to put a bunch of backlinks from my website to my customers or, other resources. No, not really. The way you should think about it is that your website's a 55-gallon drum of link juice, and you want all the spigots pouring in and filling your bucket up, and you don't really want to let any of them drain out the bottom. So there's some instances that it does make sense to do that. And then there's some different tools that are even like filters to still give a link, but don't let any authority leave your website to be given to this other website. So, but between the 3 of them, I think that this is like, to snapshot this screen and just it probably helps you pigeonhole all the other SEO related things of like, oh, if is this a backlink related thing, or is this a content related thing, or is this a keyword related thing? And then it'll probably make it easier in your mind and make a better flow chart to find how the pieces go together, because there's many of them, that's for sure. So the first thing we'll talk about is, what is a keyword? I think we all know what a keyword is, but don't get hung up on it's just one word. It's definitely a number of words, or excuse me, a number of words that are through there to how people are asking questions, and it might be it doesn't matter if it's with a question mark or not, but let's see. So most of the time they're asking those questions on Google. If the way that it usually goes is somebody does a Google search for something, and then they see whatever the results are. What they don't do is scroll to page 2 or scroll to page 3 in Google. They refine their search query, so they get a little bit more of an exact question that it's a more refined question that comes up. So in the old days, you would do a Google search for pizza. Maybe you would get a pizza recipe from a website in California. But now Google understands your intent, and most likely you're looking to get a pizza at Illuminati's or Pizza Hut or Domino's. And so that kind of, it steers you down through that way. So maybe then the next thing would be, pizza delivery. Okay, that refines the Google search results and gives you a little bit different results there. The part where when you start doing a search and there's a little drop down from Google that says, did you mean this or did you mean that? That's a good keyword tool right there, because Google's job is to get information to everybody as quickly as possible. And so if it had to query their server for the right answer every time that somebody did a search, that would take a lot of horsepower and it would take a lot of time. So Google kind of compiles all of the previous searches and sort of steers you down these channels. Did you mean pizza delivery in Naperville? Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. And I click that reference, and then it steers me down to the path that Google already has queued up for me and all the other people that are doing those same searches too. So when it comes to, we'll talk about keyword tools, but don't ignore the Google Instant dropdown, because if there wasn't anybody searching for that exact phrase, Google wouldn't be wasting the time putting that in the dropdown. It's only, they put it there because people do in fact do those searches. All right, so there's many different keyword tools that are out there for sure. I did another presentation for this same group, and we're talking about keyword research. And it was kind of funny. I think that a week before the event was going to go live, Claire sent me a message and said, did you realize that Keywords Everywhere is a paid tool now? And it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize. And I had to try to scramble and figure out a good answer. And everybody kind of dropped. It used to be a free tool and it was awesome. But everybody dropped it like a hot potato. And I went back to it and I said, okay, well, how much do I have to pay? And, it was pretty cool, and I haven't really found a replacement for it. So what I found was, if you pay them $10, which is the minimum buy-in, they give you 100,000 credits. I don't really know how many credits I'm going to use, but I've been using it for almost a year now, and I've only spent $20 with them so far. So for me, it's it's like the best $10 I ever spent in SEO is having this Keywords Everywhere tool. I'll show you how it works and in later. There are some other tools. Ubersuggest is another one. If you just do a Google search for, best keyword research tool, you'll get 100 different versions of it out there. Google Trends is another great tool. So that's free by Google. You do a search for things and it gives you, there's a lot of different ways of sorting through there. When the coronavirus kind of And when I realized that, like, oh, this is going to be here for a little while, maybe people have challenges related to SEO and the coronavirus or COVID-19 or whatever those things are. And so I went to my keyword tools and I went through keywords everywhere. And I was like, wow, there's no search volume. Coronavirus, marketing, COVID-19, SEO, nobody, like, they're not showing up there. So then I went to Google Trends and it's like, oh my God, it's flying off the charts. So it's like so much of a peak. There's like 100 million people searching for these things, but the keyword tools didn't catch up with it. Yeah. So when it comes to trending topics, Google Trends is really the right answer for that, for sure. One of the things is my middle daughter or middle stepdaughter, she was training to be a nurse, and we're sitting around the dinner table and she's asking, everything she's saying is COVID-19 this, COVID-19 that. And every time I say something, well, the coronavirus did this or that. And she's like, no, it's really called COVID-19. You should use that. And so then I went to Google Trends and I found that that COVID-19 is the loser as far as popularity of what people actually search for. So let's see what happens here. So here is just a shortcut to all the different website content management systems, and we could see how popular they are. So this is kind of like the first view of Google Trends. You can do it by timeline here. You could do it by geography over through here. You could put in one word and just kind of see if the chart is going up or down, or you could put other words through here and compare them. So the good part is that the blue one is WordPress. So it's the most popular content management system. And we could say, like, well, yeah, but what about in the last 30 days? Is that still true? Yeah, maybe even more so. But what about in Illinois? Is that true? And then we could see, like, yeah, but this other green one, Wix, is becoming pretty popular. So there's a lot of, and what areas in Illinois are, like, I don't know. So I guess if you're a web designer in the green spot here, then you better know how to use Wix, because that's what everybody's searching for, is kind of what this is telling us here. So there's a lot of great information, especially stuff that's just happening right now. Okay. We already talked about Google Instant. Of course, there's other professional tools that you pay money for. I use Ahrefs myself, but when I do keyword research, I use Keywords Everywhere, even though Ahrefs does have a really nice keyword tool inside of there too. And when it comes to different keyword tools, if I could search for a particular keyword in Ahrefs and it says that 300 people a month are doing a search for that, and I do Keywords Everywhere and it says that it's 500, it's been asked to me many times. It's like, well, how come this has this number and how come that has that number, this tool? And I would say the best way to deal with it is just ignore the fact that the numbers are different. It's on a different scale, but more of what you're trying to do is to find the relationship to the other keywords. Is this keyword searched more than this keyword? And go like that. So if you're gonna start doing keyword research with one tool, you pretty much got to stay with that particular tool to do the rest of it, at least, in that section of it, those things like that. Okay. Okay, so the next part is how to pick the right keywords. So when you do searches and you find all of them that have a number associated with it, which means how many times someone did that same search in a month's time in Google, it's not always the one with the highest number that you want to use for your keyword. You really have to think about, like, what is the intent of the person that's doing that search? If they're, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but when somebody is doing this search, they might be looking to buy something. When somebody's thinking about doing this other search, they might just be looking for information to eat. You know, some of them might be looking to buy it. Other ones are maybe looking to do it themselves. So I guess the best thing related to your website or your piece of content or whatever you're thinking of optimizing for is looking through that list of those keywords and answer the question first of which one is exactly what I do, or which one is the exact match for that. Then you can start thinking about other, which out of those exact matches, there's 3 of them that are exact match. This one is higher search volume. Okay, that's probably the better one to use. So I've had other customers like, well, why don't we just cast a wide net? And it's like, because we're wasting our time casting the wide net, we really should be zeroing in on the right exact thing. It doesn't matter, if you cast a wide net, you'll be in the 3rd page of Google, which means there's nobody that ever finds you. So it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you have to dream up different qualifying things, like at the bottom here, what's the cheapest, the fastest, the best. I remember working with a roofing company in the past, and it was like Naperville Roofing, and then we were like, well, what about how many people do a search for best Naperville roofer? Wow, 50 people a month do a search for that. So then that's probably the keyword that we really want to focus on, because that person has more of an intent of actually hiring one right now, because he's kind of, he's already past the he needs a roof or not question. He's zeroing in on who's the exact person I should work with next, right? So when it comes to keywords, you really need to be number 1. So this chart on the right over here is talking about what percentage of people click on what results. So the first bar up at the top, the number 1 results gets clicked for 31% of the time. If you zoom down to the number 9 position, it gets clicked on 2.97%. Actually, the website that's in the number 10 spot has a little bit, if you're number 10 in Google, you have more chance of being clicked than if you're a number 9 in Google. And that's kind of where people just zoom right to the bottom and say, okay, let me take a stab at it here, but it's really just 3%. So, and you could see number 2 and number 3 have some pretty decent numbers, but it's not like you can celebrate because you're number 7 in Google for this particular keyword. It'd have been better to find a keyword that has less search volume and you be number 2 for that keyword, because the volume of people that are going to come to your web page or your website is going to be a lot different. Okay. So when you do keyword research, you end up kind of with a chart like this. So different types of phrases that people are searching for, and then over on the right hand side, what's the keyword volume of that. But realize there's also the competition too. So you might say wow, I want to be number 1 in Google for web design. Yes, so does everybody else and their brother. And they've spent, probably millions of dollars in SEO to be that globally. So you should more think of, if this is the type of keywords that you want to be number 1 for, to try to get a narrow niche like your town, and maybe make another page on your website that's optimized for the town next to you, and another page that's optimized for the town next to that, and that type of a thing. And I work with a lot of web design companies, helping them with SEO. And so oftentimes I ask them so tell me about your business. Well, we're a web development firm. And so I really like to be number 1 for web development, this or that. But you could kind of see from the chart here, it's a lot less people are looking for web or website development. Everybody's looking for web or web design. And so even though development comes as part of that, what people consider what they're buying there is the design. Even if you're not a designer, you're just a developer, you still need to use the web design keywords, because that's how people are going to find you. Notice the one here, Chicago web designers for small business. 70 people a month do a search for that. I would guess that it's probably pretty easy to be number one in Google for that exact search term. And are 70 people a month that could be turned into customers good enough for you? It should be, right? So I'll tell a story about, there was a real estate agent that came to my office and he's like, oh, I got a low budget, but I really want to work with you. What can we do? And I'm like, man, I don't know if we could do anything because the Naperville real estate SEO angle is so competitive that, unless you drop some decent money and wait a decent amount of time, I don't think you're going to be anywhere where you're actually going to get any clicks. And so I was playing around and doing some different searches and I'm thinking, okay, so Naperville real estate agent. And I saw the numbers associated with that, but next I would be like, if that was me though, I wouldn't be looking for a real estate agent. I would be looking like Naperville home for sale. And so it's like, oh, that has good volume through there. And then Google asked me, Naperville home for sale, school district 203. And it's like, oh, that was an aha moment because something like 50 people a month do a search for that. Those people know exactly where they want to live. And so, and there was hardly any competition for that keyword. So that customer paid me like $500. We optimized a few pages on his website. We wrote some content. He took some pictures of some schools and we made a page and it was on the first page of Google for Naperville home for sale in school district 203. So that was a pretty good success story related to the little niche keyword, so that's kind of where you should start. You shouldn't start with these big, huge numbers.
Hey, Bruce, can we,
Yes.
There's a couple questions that relate to what you were just talking about.
Okay. Yep. That'd be great.
Sherry has asked, how does geography of where the website is created have an impact on SEO?
So that kind of goes back to the first slide that said, if it's local intent, then it's really Google My Business that's going to be ranking there. You could do optimization and you could be at the number one organic listing, but the map 3 pack is still going to be above you. And that's still kind of, the map pack is related to the geography. So that's all proximity based. So if you have an office and that map pin is in a certain spot, it's sort of like if somebody was across the street from you, you would be number one in Google for that term. And the farther away that you go from that map pin, the less likely that you'll be number one for that. But there's things to do to optimize Google My Business so you could increase that circle of influence and be found for more things. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, that's great. Let me see, sorry. Oh, Karen said, is it okay to use a few different mid-volume keywords to get clicks?
Yeah, I guess if they work, I guess all you could do is to optimize a page of content for that keyword and then sit back and say, is it being found or is it not being found for that keyword? So kind of have measurement tools. I had instances before where I thought it would be pretty easy to rank for this particular keyword. And so I optimized my web page for that or a blog post or whatever. And then I realized like, no, I didn't do a good job. I should have got something more specific and I modified it and made it more of a niche type keyword. And then I was finally successful. So sometimes you need to adjust things too.
Kathy's asking, how many hits did that real estate agent get for their top SER? Did it affect their bottom line?
So he just worked with me for this one-off project for under $1,000 worth that he spent from that. So I didn't track all of those things, but for sure he was on the first page. So he probably got, you saw on that chart what the percentage is. He probably got a phone call or two. But when it comes to the commission for selling a house, that would actually have paid for my services a couple of times then. Some of it is related to what's the value of what you're selling too. So I was used to be in the trade show industry or like the big displays, and I would use as the pitch of like, how much does a trade show display cost from you guys? And they would say, $20,000 to $50,000. And I would say, like, you mean working with me? Don't you think I'm going to help you sell one more, which paid for working with me for a year at least? And then so that was that. So the bottom line is, no, he didn't get rich off of it, but he did get his business a little bit further and get in front of a couple other people.
A key asks, how do you check where you rank for a specific keyword? Do you just search Google using that keyword?
No, there's different tools, and I'll cover some of those later on, because it gets harder because there's Google personalization comes into play nowadays. I had a situation where a high-profile Chicago lawyer that I was working with on an ongoing SEO thing, and a couple of years into us working together, he calls me up sort of frantic. He goes, somebody wrote a scathing blog post about me, and when I do a Google search, it's number 3 in Google for that search for my name. And so I put the phone on speaker and I typed in his name on my computer. And I'm like, no, it's on the 3rd page of Google. And he said, no, it's number 3 in Google. I swear to God. And so I was like, how many times you went to that page? He goes, I don't know, at least a couple dozen already today. And he goes, I went around to my office and I showed it to everybody else. And so the way that it worked was, when he did a search for his name, Google thought he wanted to see that answer because he kept clicking on it and it moved those results up higher in the page. So you really have to use a tool. It's kind of hard to see from the outside just by doing a Google search yourself. Okay, next one.
We've got questions from Tom and Kathy about backlinks and content, but why don't we continue with your
we'll get that. We'll get into that more. We'll probably answer that. Otherwise, then we can save those questions for later. Is that it? Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So the part here about keywords, it's not just like there's one keyword that I'm going to rank my whole website all about, but it really, every page on your website is a new opportunity. Your home page should be optimized for a certain keyword. Your services page should be optimized for a different keyword, and your About Us page should be optimized for a different one. So it's, you really have to keep doing keyword research as you go on. If you're thinking about like, I'm going to write a blog post about something today, then you need to do keyword research about that blog post to get the right answers for it. You can't be like, okay, here's my keyword research that I did 6 months ago, and let me use those keywords on my blog post, because then it turns into keyword cannibalization. So that means you got 5 pages on your website all ranking for the same exact keyword, but that doesn't do you any good because you really want to kind of have a flow chart of opportunities that are coming in via different means. It shouldn't be off-target type of keywords. They all should sort of be related to a general theme. There was one time that Palos Hills Chiropractor, they worked with me for SEO. They were number 1 in Google for Palos Hills Chiropractor. They heard that I said, well, one of the things that we should do is you should have a blog on your website. Those are other future things. We had a 6-month contract, and they were happy being number 1, and like they parted ways. And a year or so later, they called me up and it's like, Bruce, we're not getting any more leads from our website. And I like, okay, so I did a Google search right away for Palos Hills Chiropractor. I'm like, oh, you're not number 1 for Palos Hills Chiropractor anymore. And she said, what are we number 1 for? And I found that answer, and that answer, I swear to God, was ways to use Fels Naphtha soap. I'm like, what? How does that happening? And what happened was that customer heard that they need to have a blog, and they partnered with some natural blogging person, which kind of fit in their scheme of things with natural health and chiropractic care. And she wrote like 3 articles of different ways of using Fels Naphtha soap. And that was why Google, forgot that they were a chiropractor and thought that they were all about giving recipes for natural healing. Right? Okay. So when it comes to keywords, you just think of yourself looking out across the Rocky Mountain Range. Yes, everybody wants to climb Mount Rainier and Mount Hood, but realize that the sun only shines on you when you're on the top of the mountain, and you don't have enough Sherpas and you don't have enough oxygen tanks just starting out to get to the top of that mountain. So it's better to find a small mountain, climb, get to the top of that, let the sun shine on you and make money from it or get power from that, and then go back and climb another small one, working your way up to the bigger mountains. So think of it that way instead of just, there's this one main prime keyword. I'm going to try to climb that mountain, do or die, because I would almost guarantee that it'll be die. There's some big mountains that I've tried to climb before myself too, and I realize that you got to take baby steps and it takes time to get there. Okay. So when it comes to keywords, really it's just step one. There's a whole lot more to go through with this. And by the way, I'll be sharing this presentation too. So if I'm going too fast or too slow for you, you'll be able to follow up and fill in the blanks there yourself. All right. So Claire, do you got any other questions related to keywords? Because we're going to move into some other parts next.
No, I think our other questions you probably are going to answer pretty soon because they're both about Yoast.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Yoast. So don't. I'm not seeing what the things are, but I bet you one of them is, should I buy the premium version of Yoast? I don't know how many times that question has been asked to me. A lot of them. The answer is no. You don't need to buy the premium version of Yoast. You just need to use the regular Yoast plugin and fill it all in the right way. Just by buying it and not using it to its full capacity, it's not worth it there. So there's different SEO plugins for sure. I think when I first started out more than a decade ago, all-in-one SEO was the right one to use, but then that sort of evolved and it's been Yoast for a long, long time. And mostly Yoast gives you the field to fill in a title tag. So when you create a new post, whatever your blog title is, without a SEO plugin, that's going to become your SEO or meta title tag. Yoast allows you to modify that and make it whatever you want it to be, different than whatever your real post is. And it does the same thing with your description tag, and it does some other cool parts too. I'll show you when we work on some stuff live. If you have another SEO plugin, like let's imagine that you're using the all-in-one SEO plugin and you really want to use Yoast, don't worry, because Yoast has an import feature right from the all-in-one SEO plugin. And it kind of works the other way around too. I think that all-in-one SEO can import from these, and Rank Math, which is the new one on the block, and it can pull it from all of the other ones. So it's not like you have to fill in all the blanks again, but you do have to learn how it works again, like you did the first time. But it doesn't really matter. Remember, we were talking about like SEO, that 90% of websites have not been optimized, and that's mostly just because there were blanks that nobody took the time to fill in. It's crucial to fill in the right information in these SEO plugins, because if you don't, then it'll just be an unoptimized website, or a website that's optimized for the wrong keywords. Okay. Another part that Yoast does and other SEO plugins is they help you with a sitemap. So that's just sort of like a flow chart for Google to have them more easily crawl your website to understand where all the different pages of content that you have on there. One of the things with Yoast is it gives you like a sitemap for almost every different piece of inside of WordPress. And that's sort of wrong, because you really want to have Google only be able to find your content via one path. So if it's your website and then /blog and then the name of your the title of it, you want it really to be found there, as opposed to but you can also find it as part of your portfolio, and you can also find it in the author's sitemap, all those things like that. So when you could go to basically any website and then just type in sitemap.xml, and you'll see what your sitemap is here. So if I was able to go to another website, I could just put in the same sitemap XML and I would get all these different things. The right way to set the Yoast plugin is so that you just have pages, posts, and categories. You don't really need anything else. If you had a website where there was multiple authors and you cared about somehow dividing those authors up, then you could, turn on the author profile. But there's also like WordPress tags, but tags are almost just like a secondary category, and now it's getting confusing. We don't need to make a helter-skelter list of all of those things. So you could just check your site though, by just typing in that same, sitemap XML, and you can see what your sitemap looks like. Okay. And then we can talk about content. So content really is everything inside of your website, and some of it are the things that are outside of your website too. Like I mentioned, where the description that you call what your website is, or let's say you wrote a blog post and now you're going to tell people like, here's a cool blog post about doing XYZ. Did you use keywords in XYZ? Did you use the right things there? So that type of content even helps. All the way down to what is the name of your image before you added it to your website, or what is what is the name of your YouTube video before you added it to YouTube. All those type of things matter. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of homework in advance rather than just, some of the things, once you do them, it's hard to back up and like fix it. You can only fix it before you add it. Also, content on your website kind of goes stale. We had a blog post that we had a writer that was working, he was an employee of mine, and we didn't have any work for him right then and there. So I said, okay, why don't you write a blog post, put on our own website, and it's going to be titled All the Different Types of Marketing. And I want you to write a paragraph about all the different types of marketing: guerrilla marketing, email marketing, billboard marketing. It was a monster. I mean, that post was humongous. I think we had probably 200 visitors a day just going to that one post. But you might, I patted myself on the back saying, look what we did. But if you think about it, none of those people were really my target audience. So it was like course curriculum from a college in California. And the teacher was saying, pick 2 of these things and write a story about it or whatever. And it was a link to that page. But it worked really good. But after a year or so, it faded. And so that was kind of sad. What can I do? So I changed the post date to be that day today. And I added a couple extra words and sentences. And, I really didn't do much. I probably did 5% of improvement on it. And I changed the post date and then hit submit. And Lori B, it was back up to the top of those search queries again. And it ran for another year or so. So it's important, if you wrote a blog post a couple of years ago, I bet you could tune it up a little bit and it might be relative again now.
Tom had a question that sort of relates to this.
Sure.
What you're saying about Yoast. He said Yoast recommends you begin content with your exact keyword phrase. This doesn't always lead to the most eloquent copy. How important is this suggestion for SEO?
Yeah, sometimes you can't take everything to heart that Yoast says, because sometimes like one of the things that on the Yoast plugin is like, you don't have any outbound links. And it's like, well, I don't want any outbound links, but I'm not going to get this stupid thing to turn green unless you put one in, which would be against my regard. But let's just imagine you're going to write a press release about Bruce Jones is going to do a webinar about SEO 101. And so if the press release title said Bruce Jones holds webinar for Naperville WordPress group, That's one way of saying it. And that's probably the most accurate way of saying it. But another way of saying it that would be more beneficial for me SEO wise, it would say like Chicago SEO consultant holds, WordPress classes or something like that. You notice how the big popular keyword is in the front of the title now. So sometimes you just have to do what you can with it. But it's true, the more farther in the front of a title or whatever, it just has more precedence. It's just like if you have a page of content, but you don't start putting keywords in until the bottom, that's certainly going to not be recognized as much as putting them in at the top of that article. Okay. Hopefully that answered that.
Yeah, and that answered an earlier question from Kathy too about what Yoast says about the outbound links as well.
Yeah.
Aki has a question about what your previous anecdote where you changed where you edited the post that had been there a while.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Google penalizes you for changing your post date unless there is a major change.
It was a major change. I added 2 words and it was recognized as that, right? So, I didn't change it around. I didn't rewrite the whole thing. That's for sure. When I had an agency and press releases were very popular, and we would write one press release and we would submit it to 5 press release sites and only have it showing up one time. So then we evolved to, we would rewrite it 5 different times. And then we learned that if we rewrote it about 30%, mostly with the changes at the top of the article, Google saw it as original content and went through there like that. So when I made those changes, I kind of took that to heart of, the types of marketing that were at the top of the list. Those are the ones that I changed more than the ones that were down in the bottom. And maybe I thought of one more type of marketing in the meantime too. All right. That answer those?
Yeah, I think we're just about caught up except for a few that I'm going to bring back up later.
That's a lot of management. I owe you a 6-pack sometime. All right. So when it comes to on-page SEO, and these are the things that we fill into Yoast, we'll kind of talk about them again in the end now, but you should probably here's the rules or the best practices type of things, because I see it not being followed many times. So a title tag, Google only reads up to about 60 characters. It doesn't really have a character limit, but it has a space limit. So some letters are wider than other letters, and that's why it's about 60 characters is what they say. If you put a title tag more than 60 characters, what would happen? Google would just not see what's after the fact. And so just, the title tag should be around, something under 60 characters. Sometimes it makes sense to have a lot shorter of a title tag because you're making a page that, front/services. I mean, it's kind of looks stupid to have a big long run on, 5 or 6 words there to make it come up to 60 characters. So in the Yoast plugin, it still says that it's invalid or, it failed that test. But I would just say, do what's best for people and don't follow that exactly. It's just more of a general rule to keep people on track with doing things more correctly. For sure, it's better than not doing anything. Description tags should include a keyword and a call to action because those are what are read in Google search results. So if you were doing a Google search for Naperville web design and you saw something like, a free puppy with every web design ordered, how many people would click on that? And so that I'm saying, like, whatever the call to action, make it something that makes it where people want to click onto it. Maybe not everybody wants puppies, but, cheapest website design in the world, that's, not correct, but make it where it's going to catch people's attention when it's on a page of content, and they'll be more likely to click on you. And then it should be under 150 characters. So besides a keyword in the title tag and a keyword in the meta description tag, you got to also have it within your content too. But you can't say it so much that it looks spammy. If you're writing an article about a hospital, it makes common sense that it's going to include words like doctors and nurses and patients and beds and medicine, all those other related terms. So you need to write like that too. It can't be like, I want to be number one for red widget, so I'm going to say all this green widget kind of stuff, and then I'm going to mention red widget 3 times in the article. No, it has to be all about that one keyword and different ways of saying that. I've had people come to me and it's like, that keyword is not mentioned anywhere on this piece of content, but it still comes up number 1 in Google. So an example of that might be SEO company. Do a search for that. And maybe the word SEO is not mentioned anywhere on the page that happens to be number 1 in Google. But it does say search engine optimization, and it does say inbound marketing, and it does say digital marketing, like all the other related things that kind of mean the same. So maybe when you're making your keyword list, you should put another column and say, what's another way of saying this same thing that I'm describing here? Because now it'll look like you're real and you're not a spammer just trying to duplicate your keyword numerous times. When it comes to images, you got to really do a little bit of work on them before you add them to your website. There is a WordPress plugin that you can change it after the fact, but it's a big hassle. It's a lot easier just to put them into your website. But I know it's easy. It's better and simpler for web designers to name an image header 1 JPG instead of, whatever your client's business is, .jpg, because that would be a beneficial, that would be a benefit to them to do it that way, or you could do nothing and then just leave it the way it is, DSC 5001 JPG, and it's not going to help anybody. Not going to help you figure out what image is the header image, and it's not going to help SEO realize that this is what the keyword is, what that particular client is trying to rank for. So now we could talk a little bit about like your pages and things like that. So there was an article that I have in our resource box in the bottom that it analyzed 11 million websites and the top ranking websites and kind of said, what are these things that they have in common? So for example, everybody says that a page has to be fast to rank at the top. And this test proved that that's not true. There's slow websites at the top of search results. But one of the things that was an overlying yes for was that most of the content that was ranking number 1 in Google for popular keywords was somewhere around 2,000 words. So if you continue to write 500-word blog posts, you're never going to get to be where these guys are that are at the top now. So it's better to write. The longer it is, the better. I've seen 5,000-word articles, and yeah, that's better than 500 for sure, as far as the ability to rank. And the longer the article, you might rank for other keywords too. It's not just ranking for that one keyword, but you'll be ranking for other related ones too. When you write your text, break it up into subheadings and maybe put a keyword or a different type of a keyword in the subheadings to make it easier to read, and it'll give you the ability to put the right keyword again in a more bold place on the page. When you're putting a page URL together, maybe you could include the keywords in the URL too. Not always can you do that, but I'm just saying, like, when you're running down your punch list of things to search engine optimize something, it's something to think about. So my services page could be front/services, or it could be Naperville-web design services. Maybe that's a little bit too spammy there. Also, when you're writing content, the word that you might put a link to another page, that helps. It's like a vote for that word to be to go to the destination. I'll show you this in live. Okay. And then when it comes time to, some people write content and then they put a link to all their other pages 27 times in the content, but it really should be kind of done more of, this is the rule. So if you have 500 words of content, that could like support 1 or 2 backlinks to your own pages, to your own alternative pages there. If you have 1,000-word article, you could probably put like 3 or 4 links. If you're the person that says like, well, I could put 5 or 6, just realize that those 5 or 6 are sharing that power. So I would rather put 1 and have it really powerful than to put 5 or 6 and have them it's all diluted between those other ones. So in every page, or like, if you're going to write a blog post or something like that, you want to use other links that are going to go to the money pages on your website, or where are you trying to drive people to? Those links will help that page rank better for those keywords. Okay.
Real quick about that last slide, Tom Payne has a question on when you say put a keyword in your subheadings, do you mean in the new paragraph under that subheading or in the text of the subheading itself?
In the text of the subheading itself, if you can manage it and make it look spammy. I'll show that in live. We're going to put a blog post on a page here, so we'll go through a little bit more of that. When it comes to images, there's a lot of things you can do with images. Maybe some of the things that I talked about in the past, I've seen reports that it didn't matter as much. Depends upon where you're going to put your image. So I was certainly not optimize an image that I was going to put on Facebook, because just Facebook strips everything else out. It kind of does that on Google My Business also, but some people, they're selling services that do that for big bucks, and a lot of people are buying it too. So I'm scratching my head with what the right answer is. But when it comes to the things on your own website, yeah, I would spend a little bit more time optimizing those things. But just realize that, don't try to clean the refrigerator with a toothbrush, because there's bigger fish to fry related to some of the other things that you might do that you could use your time more effectively. When it comes to what do you name an image or how to optimize an image, it really needs to describe what that image is too. But if you have an opportunity to use a keyword, all the better. So imagine an image is like a playing card. And if you flip it over, one is the picture and the other is the description. They should really be the same thing. Not like, oh, I wasn't expecting that picture to come up. It really needs to describe that. And then when you're naming images, you have to name them with dashes in between the words, and not, so dashes to Google are word separators. So Naperville web design. If you use an underscore is a null character to Google, and it just kind of smooshes all the words together and makes, Naperville web design. It says it in one word. And if you leave a space in that, in an image name, it'll work. But if you look at that URL of that image, then it'll add a %20, because that's what the internet representation of a space. It's just kind of like the and sign. It's the ampersand, it's a bunch of code there instead of that. So the cleanest way to name an image is just make sure you use a dash between each word. How about like blogging intensity, like how often should you blog and things like that? Probably at least once a month. there's definitely a lot of studies though that people that blog more often than that end up being more successful. So I guess it's sort of like a balancing act with how much time can you blog and how successful do you want to be. But realizing that most everything, the more energy you spend on it, usually the more you get out of it there. Sometimes you might even have a post and rewrite it to be like a couple of different versions of it. It's probably a lot quicker to do rewrites of your blog post and using it in other places rather than think of a whole new topic through there. So the components of it should have at least one image that's optimized, that'll go on the top. And you kind of shouldn't forget that every page and every post really should have some sort of a call to action at the bottom of it. Because if you don't tell people what to do next after they read your thing, most likely they're just going to go back and do another Google search and read your competitor's item on it. But if you steer them down a track to get a little bit deeper in the marketing funnel, you might have caught them and turned them into a customer then. And so so the next part is blog categories. So I see that being done a lot of different ways. Some websites they're all uncategorized, or other ones is every time they write a blog post, they add a new category to it. But the right way to do it is like in advance, think of all of the blogs that I'm going to write for the next 3 years. What categories could those have gone into? And are any of those categories, can I include a keyword phrase or something similar that makes sense and describe it that way? And then put those categories, and each blog post should only go in one category. So if you think of a silo at the farm, so there's a silo of corn, and there's a silo of rice, and there's a silo of wheat. There is no such thing as like rice corn. That's what you would get if you wrote a blog post and said that it belongs in two categories. It's saying like, if you're trying to steer it down into there's this content pillar or a silo and you're picking more than one, then now Google's going to get mixed up, and so are your readers. Right? So it kind of should look like this. If this is a category, one of your categories, and here's your blog posts that are underneath it. Here's another category. So arranged just like this. So if you think about it as this, maybe describes it a little bit better, like, small, medium, and large dogs. So here's the small dogs. Oh, Jack Russells, Chihuahuas, Maltese, but you're not going to see a link from the Maltese Poodle over to the Dalmatian over here. It doesn't make any sense. So you want to kind of keep these all in their own little category. You don't want it to look like that. So it's easy to get them to look like that if you're just intent on putting more backlinks into your articles or whatever. But in the end, you probably didn't accomplish much here like this. But if you focus on doing it the other way, you've definitely added value related to the inner backlinks on your website. Okay, any questions about content there?
I think we're all caught up. We're going to have some questions about, sorry.
Were you working in the kitchen?
So we're good, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so off-page SEO or backlinks. So I mentioned before that article about like what are the things that had in that those 11 million websites had in common that were ranking up at the top. And the by far thing that all of them showed was they all had more backlinks that went to them. So if you write a blog post that is not very good quality, but you put a bunch of links to it, Google is still going to believe that that should be number one in Google because those votes are considered highly. So if you don't do any work on collecting votes, you're not going to win the campaign in the end here. So, uh, that's how it measures the authority of your website. That's how it measures the authority of your pages. You can write the best content that you wanted to, and it's certainly not going to have as much potential as one that have links either from your own other posts linking to it or from other websites out there linking to it. So when it comes to backlinks, there's good ones and bad ones too. It's not all about like I got 1,000 backlinks. I mean, you could go to Fiverr and literally for $5 buy 1,000 backlinks, but they're all going to be bad backlinks. And so it used to be that those backlinks didn't really hurt you. They didn't help you, but nowadays they actually hurt you. So they take points away. So there's not an even ground. So if you are getting bad backlinks, then you're losing power, not staying even for sure. So you want to stay away from the bad backlinks. And what's the difference between a good backlink or not a good backlink? A link that comes from a higher authority website that's in the niche that the rest of your industry is about. So those type of things, as opposed to, a directory that there's a page on the directory and there's 1,000 other websites on that same page. That's pretty low quality. I think most people can look at what they're looking at. I mean, after a while, hopefully you train yourself to say, this looks like a good place. I would use this page to do some research, or, oh, this just looks like crap. So if you ever see where it just looks like crap, don't even bother trying to put your website link there, because that's the way that Google feels about it too. It just is a crap place to put a backlink. So not all of the links should just go to your homepage too. You really need to, if you can make it work, is put links to your inner pages. So sometimes you have to even cultivate those ideas of make content that people want to link to. That was the idea of the types of marketing article. And so I duplicated that recently here I took the time, it took me like about 2 weeks to collect and compile a blog post or a page on my website that was 100 different free SEO tools. And it has a few backlinks to it now so far, because it's a pretty good, resource that people might want to bookmark and share with their friends, and other websites might link it as resources from their things there. So when it comes to backlinks, it doesn't end there with just, is it a high quality website, and is it in my niche type of a thing, and is it on a page that I'm the only backlink, or is it on a page that there's 1,000 other websites that also have a link from that page? But now there's another caveat of no follow or do follow. So, if Google measures all the backlinks, people were losing SEO power that were linking out to advertisers. So a website that had advertising would come back and say, hey, wait a minute, I didn't want to give any of my SEO power to these guys that are paying me to be on their website. And so Google figured out a way, and that was called the no follow link. So what it does is, basically, if you imagine a pipeline of beef stew, that's a normal link. And there's a filter on it now that it only transfers the broth. All, the meat and potatoes are left behind. And that would be a no follow link. They're kind of invisible to the naked eye, but there's a lot of them out there. And so a low quality directory, there's most likely no follow links. So if you spend all your time, it's sort of like, I ate race cakes all day. It's like, well, how much nutrition did you get out of that? Not much. And that's sort of what a no follow link is. It's natural to get some of them, so it's not like, stay away from them totally. But what you want to try to do is to figure out to get more do follow links. I'll show you a little bit more. I have a extension on my computer, so whenever I see a no follow link, it shows me. So I can go right to a piece of content, and it puts a little red underline around it if it's a no follow link. So it makes it visible to me, but normally it's invisible, right? I think we talked about the inner, get links to inner pages. The word that the link is going to is important. So this is an example of anchor text. So if I'm writing, this is my blog post, I'm putting stuff here and I say, click here. It kind of like that's saying, hey, Google, click here, lives on this page I'm linking to. Or I could say, this is the best SEO training company, and it's linking, that's the word I'm putting on that link. And so then it's telling Google like, oh, this is what that word stands for. So that's sort of like a vote. This PowerPoint is giving a vote that my website is this by doing it this way. Hopefully everybody understands that, as opposed to just doing it that way. Probably how can I get the best backlinks out there? It's probably by guest posting and doing that. So kind of being known in your industry. So I have to admit that, with this presentation, I was able to give to the WordPress Naperville group, like, here's my curriculum and here's where my resources are that I'm going to be talking about. And then that worked its way up to WordPress. So I have a backlink from WordPress now because I was a authority in my industry type of thing, to some degree here. But when it comes to SEO, a lot of SEO is just a constant battle of trying to get more backlinks. After you figure out what the right keywords are, you optimize your content as well as it can be, then the mission is just to keep getting more backlinks. It's drudgery sometimes, but that's what equals success.
We have a lot of questions about backlinks.
Okay.
Do you have a process for getting appropriate backlinks? Kathy says it seems a bit like cold calling someone.
Yeah, to some degrees. So I have a number of processes. So one process that works really good is to find who's ranking number one for that term and figure out what their backlinks are. And then try to run down that list of all those backlinks and see if you could duplicate them. It doesn't always work, but that's a good starting point for sure, because that those are, the right kind of backlinks, because you can sort them by the most powerful down to the least powerful, at least in Ahrefs. That's what I use there. There are other tools. So that's one way. Another way would be just to have kind of like a list of resources that are good, trusted places. So I have lists of directories that I know are good, and they provide a do follow link and not a no follow link, and they're in certain niches. And I just kind of have those in my back pocket that if I get a new client, I'm going to work on putting them through there. Those guys also allow guest posts. So yeah, if I get I'm going to add my new client to the directory. I'm going to write a guest post or 2 or 3, depends upon, what the budget is. And then that's going to go through there like that. If you go to my website, just do a Google search for personalized SEO training, you should find me. And I have a resource tab. And one of my resources there is, here's a bunch of great backlink places. Some of the consideration, one of the things to think of. So just do this as an example. If you do a Google search for Chicago SEO consultant, what's number one in Google? Yelp. So you have to make sure, so should you put your listing in Yelp or not? Yes. I mean, that answers that question. They're number one in Google. So that's where people are clicking. That's where they're going. And you want to be there. So that's another way of, figuring out where to go. Okay.
We have a question from Aki. What do you do when you get a bad backlink?
you try to get more of them, just like what to do if you got a bad review. You know, sometimes you can't erase it. So, but you can make it sort of invisible by getting 10 good ones. That's one thing, one way of approaching it. There is a disavow list inside of Google Search Console. So you could collect up those and give that list to Google. And it was sort of when Google, I think it was Penguin, there was a big, shakeup where Google started measuring that and hurting people for it. I had a lot of people that were knocking on my door saying, help me. And I would say, like, I'm sorry, but it would actually be easier for you to buy a new domain name and us to rank it than for us to fix your old domain name's backlinks. That's how bad it is. And so sometimes there is no solution for it.
Okay.
Some of those businesses went out of business because of that, because they were, number one in Google, and that's where all their business was coming from. And now they're on the 10th page of Google and nobody's going to their website anymore.
What do you think about a web designer putting a link to their website at the bottom of a client's site, like where it says site by?
Yeah,
whoever?
that was a traditional practice of things, but so there's a couple of ways of that it's right and wrong, and I'll kind of explain that. So when you do that, so let's say one of your clients has 1,000 pages on their, or let's just 100 pages website, and it's in a non-related niche as yours, and you put the footer link in there. It's like those backlinks don't really help you because they're from a non-related website. Plus, after the first or second backlink, the 5th and the 10th and the 50th and the 75th ones, those end up hurting you. So having a site-wide link, that's kind of what that's called. That's a negative SEO factor now. So you don't want to do that. The next part would be if it's anchor text, like if it said Naperville web design, that's how I did it back in the day. And thinking that it helps me, but now it's on 1,000 pages. So it's clearly, spammy looking there, and there's credits coming off of it. I have a client of mine from the Netherlands now that that's all he did was buy site-wide links, and they're all his money keyword. And then he's wondering why Google is not even indexing him for that keyword. It's like, well, it's no wonder, you pushed it 10,000 times too much in that direction. And Google just says, take you out of the running. So you need to, take the site-wide links off, mix it up and make more natural links like the full HTTP URL of your website. Make it say, click here on some of them to make it look more natural, because Google's measuring all that stuff. Hopefully I answered that question.
Lori Casey has one. It's about when people leave a comment on your blogs and they have a link back to their website in their author area. If you approve those comments, are you providing a backlink for them? Should you approve those?
Yeah, most of the time. So one of the things that WordPress fixed a long time ago was they made all those comments no follow. So they don't hurt you so bad, and they don't provide link juice to the other guy leaving the comment so much. But there's still some, right? You're still delivering the broth, even though it's not the whole beef stew through there. I've had it go before where there's like a new blogger. It's like, oh my God, it's like everybody loves my blog post. Like I had 10 people comment just last week. And I look at it, it's like, oh my God, it's just a bunch of spammers trying to get backlinks. But they took it to heart, and it was like thought that people are actually commenting on their blog post. But in the end, they were just trying to link out to Viagra websites and things like that. So a lot of, I guess the evolution is that most people don't allow blog comments anymore. I do allow blog comments on mine, but I haven't got a real blog comment in almost a year. Like the whole time, I don't think that anybody really gave me a good blog comment. It was always some spammer trying to get a backlink. Okay.
That's it for backlinks for now. Yeah.
All right. So another more recent challenge, and maybe I didn't realize it back before because I keep getting smarter too. So I know that I would get backlinks for clients, and they would sometimes count, sometimes not count. It took a while to count, but it seems to be more of a case of you get a backlink and then Google ignores that backlink. And most, that's invisible to most people. I think it was more of a challenge forever, but people didn't realize it, or at least I didn't realize it as much. So, like, for example, LinkedIn. So, at one point in time, when I had the agency, every month I had a writer write a blog post and spin it two different ways, one for LinkedIn and one for another, like some random other blog that we would find. And I was putting content on LinkedIn and I was putting the backlinks to my web pages, and I thought I was doing all cool. And then I realized a long, long time later that actually LinkedIn wasn't indexing any of those pages. So Google never knew that that LinkedIn article I wrote ever existed. So that backlink could never have counted. And I was doing it all wrong there. So, so there's a way of checking to see if this blog post of yours is indexed, or you added your website to a certain directory and now you want to tell, did it count or did it not count? And it's just, you put the word CACHE colon, no space, in front of that URL, and Google will then answer it one of two ways. Here's the cached version of this page when we indexed it, I don't know, the 12th of May, or nope, we never saw this before. So let me just, I think this would, so we're going to copy this. Whoops, I'm sorry. I thought I could copy out of here, but I guess I can't do it when I'm in presenter mode. Okay, so this is my company. I added a listing to Merchant Circle. Probably some of you know what that is. It's a directory, pretty major directory there, so it's a listing of my company. And now I'm going to test it to say, does Google know that the backlink I got from Merchant Circle is there? So I'm just going to put CACHE colon, no space, and then that URL. And when I hit enter, Google says, nope, we never saw that before. So it's like, damn, I just wasted all that time getting, adding my list to Merchant Circle. And it could be like that for all over the place. A lot of times, probably most of you, maybe 10% of your blog posts are this same way. Google never recognized it and nobody realized it. So I would check your websites just to see if that's true or not. So that's one way. There's another tool that I found here called an index checker. So you could put all of your blog URLs in here and it'll come back and say, yes, this one is indexed. No, this one is not. And now you'll know. And so what I do now is it used to be that you could use pinging tools or, add it to an online ping service and that would help it get indexed, but those are not working anymore. So then I fixed that problem by adding a page on my website. It doesn't have to be in the menu. It doesn't really even have to be linked to anything else. And it's just a page that here's all of the URLs that are not indexed by Google yet, that are my listings. And by putting them on this list and then going to Google Search Console and saying, hey, Google, check out this page, this page right here that we're looking at, then more of them they'll be more likely to be indexed. So here, we'll just do this. Where did it go here? This mass index checker. I'll show you what it looks like. We'll just let it run a minute. And then I think we'll jump in and go on the back end of WordPress and do some stuff. And it could maybe be more of an interactive thing. If somebody has a question, I'll try to stop and answer it right then. So you see, I paid good money, or I did hard labor to get all these backlinks. And do they count? Nope. All the way through here like that, right? So, but it's an ongoing process. So I have that list, I put them on there, I check it again in a month. Okay, some of them are indexed now, I remove those off the list. I get new backlinks, I put them on here. So it's kind of, it's a rolling list of unindexed backlinks to my website. All right. I'll try to move a little bit quicker here so we have enough time to get in the back end of there, but there's a lot of good resources that I put through here. This is related to website analytics. So if you can't measure something, how do you know if you're doing good or bad? You really need to benchmark stuff. That would be the first thing. Sometimes I'm guilty of not benchmarking soon enough, and I do some fixes and it's already a little bit better and I benchmark it there. I really needed to learn how to benchmark it before I even touch anything. But some of the ways is Google Analytics, and you could set it up to have reports emailed to you every week or month or whatever. There's a really cool little plugin here called Keyword Hero, and what it does is it bolts onto Google Analytics, and now you can see all of the keywords that your website got visits for. So when somebody did a search and you came up and they clicked, now you can tell if you have this plugin installed. StatCounter is another web analytics program, and you could actually see not the person's name, but you could identify individual people. What was the browser that they used? What pages did they click to? How long were they on your website? Did they download your white paper? You can get all of that information by using StatCounter. Clicky.com has heat maps, so you could see where people clicked on a web page. Local Viking shows where you rank on a map. It's more related to Google My Business, but it's still worthy of mentioning here, because when you're talking about like ranking locally, Local Viking is probably the most accurate way of doing that. So it's like map pins on a map on a grid, and it says like, oh, when you're across the street from my business, I'm number 1. But when I'm on the other side of Google from my business, I'm number 7. And when I'm downtown, the next town over, I'm number 100. So it tells you that answer. And DataBox is a service that will like combine almost all of the Google tools plus other ones, and it'll show it all on one dashboard. So that's cool. So here, let's just run through this. So, I've been doing SEO for so long that I'll challenge you that I can tell if a website has been search engine optimized or not. In only 3 seconds, it'll take me to tell that answer. And I'll show you the secret here. So, this is, if we were doing it live, maybe a couple of people would yell out a domain name or two, but then maybe they feel bad because it actually was not, or maybe they feel even worse because they paid somebody to search engine optimize it, but it's still not. That happens like that. So the secret is, all I have to do is bring up a website and look and see what the title tag of the home page is. 90% of them are just a company name. Some of them are worse, where they say home there, or maybe home and the company name. So if you think of Google as being the librarian and your website is the book, it's, this is what you put on the spine of your book to tell Google what your website is about. So it's the best place to put a keyword. And it was really hard for me to find a bad example to use, because I couldn't use Google because Google was only bringing up good examples. And that was honestly true. But then I was lucky enough to have a prospect come to me the other day. And this is her website. So she's a makeup artist in the Chicago suburbs. or in, yeah, in Chicago suburbs. So there's their homepage title tag. So would you ever read that book if that was on the spine of the book? You know what I mean? If you were Google, what shelf would you put this website on? Really just on the my site for shelf, subcategory home, instead of Joanna, makeup artist in Chicago, which is probably what she wants to be number one for. Okay. Here's a reference to the 100 free SEO tools. Here's a reference to that article about so many people, what do you call it? All the different 11 million websites, and here's what the ones that are ranking at the top have in common. And here's all the different plugins that I use. So I thought that was kind of a good resource. Not all of them are SEO exactly related, but it's probably worth considering going down the list. And then kind of a pitch for what I do. So I work with people one-on-one on search engine optimization. So certainly not doing it just broadcasting SEO training to you, but it's more holding your hand, and actually we're optimizing your website together. So you get smarter, your website get optimized at the same time, and you can come back and do it later on. 1 hour a week is how often we do it like that. Usually I charge $349 for a month. Pretty much within 6 months, you'll definitely be really smart. But I would make an offer to anybody in this group for $200 a month would be my coronavirus special. Right? And that's it for the PowerPoint. Okay, so here's my website. Here, let's just quickly talk about a couple of things. Feel free to leave a comment there. And also, you find my website. I have a free offer that'll you could see my calendar and schedule some time with me. I'm happy to work with anybody one-on-one to answer their questions there, right? So let's first talk about SEO and the sitemap situation in Yoast. So this is the Yoast sitemap. The search appearance part is where you turn on or off your sitemaps. So if I look at content types, so is there a sitemap for posts? Yes. Is there a sitemap for pages? Yes. Is there a sitemap for my portfolio? I don't use the portfolio as part of this template, so the answer is no, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of these, but honestly, if you didn't adjust these things, you probably have 25 sitemaps that you don't need. So why do you want to have a library card and you're like flashing it in front of Google, like this is important, this is important, this is important? Like, no, just focus on what's really important: your pages, your posts, and maybe your categories. So that's that part. Okay, so we're going to go to posts, and then here's the part about categories. So I thought up some different categories. I put descriptions that are related to these particular categories, and then here's how many posts that are on each one of those. So now we're just going to say add a new post. I'm going to go to this article. So I did some keyword research beforehand, and these were what I came out with related to this post. And so it's an offer to help nonprofits for free with SEO training. And so it talks about some of the nonprofits that I helped in the past and an offer to help future ones. But I know that nonprofits are searching certain ways, so I wanted to make sure I work those keywords in within this. So we'll work quickly and copy that. I'm going to add the title there.
Bruce, is there a way you can bump up the font size a little bit in the browser?
I can do like,
Just like a control plus or something? Yeah,
yeah,
thanks. That's just a little easier to read.
yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody know the answer for every time I paste text, it always leaves an extra space and I have to go back and take them out of here? I'd love to know the answer to that question. Okay, so this is a new post. What else do we need to do? We need to pick a category. We shouldn't pick more than one category. We only need to pick one category. Where is the categories at? Oh, there we go. So I only have a choice of picking one. I should never pick two. And I shouldn't have any category ever that says uncategorized. What I did was I just renamed my uncategorized category SEO training. So pretty much if I didn't do anything, it would automatically go into that. But I guess I'm going to call it news and events. So that's going to be that. I'm not going to waste the time putting tags in. Personal preference there, I guess. I'm going to set my featured image by uploading it. Go to here. So I have a nice one. So most people just upload it like this. It's named Adobe stock and then a number like that, right? So that's not a good thing. So I'm going to do a right mouse click, rename. Excuse me. All these things don't need to be the same exact keyword. Realize that having a good natural mix of them that are in the same theme is going to be better. I could have just said charity or something else like that. So most people would say, this is awesome, let's upload it up there. But that's because most people don't realize if they do a right mouse click properties and then go to details, you could put a title here, you could put a subject, you could say that this is a 5-star image, you can put a comment, who's the author, is it copyrighted, all the way down to the level of, you could put GPS coordinates of where was this picture taken even. I'm not going to waste the time to do all that, but just realize that under the hood, these things are available.
Does the length of the file name of the image matter?
I read something about it could go up to some astronomically long number, but there's not like it has a standard 60 characters or anything like that. I think just describe what the picture is, it's good enough, right? So we're going to add this as a featured image. I'm going to put the alt text tag. Close enough. I don't need to fill all the rest of them in. So there, now I got a featured image through here. Now I want to think about what pages on my website are my money pages that I want to get more traffic for. I want it to be recognized more. Let's see what we could find. Okay, so let's just say this word, SEO classes. And I'm going to figure out what page on my website I want to link to. All right. How about my services page? This is an important page to me. I want it to be ranking higher for the keywords that it's optimized for. Excuse me. And then so I'm going to go back to that post. Where'd it go? And then I'm going to, on this word, SEO classes, I'm going to hyperlink it. I'm going to say OK. Now we have a hyperlink there. Now I could go back and edit it. it's not working. I apologize. I'm not seeing the pop-up, but with this gear, I could say, is this a do follow link or is this a no follow link? So since this is my own resource, I want it to be a do follow link. If this was, some external resource of mine that is not a buddy that I want to help out, then I'm going to make sure that it's a no follow link. And I'm going to maybe do another one, put another link throughout the content here also and go from there. And then, let's see. Okay, so we're good there. I'll show you quickly in Google Analytics. So this is with Keyword Hero installed, my one-on-one SEO training. And so if I go into the acquisition part, and once you install it, you kind of have to give it a little bit of time for it doesn't see backwards, it only sees forwards. So here's the visitors that came to my website. So when I go to organic search, then I get to see all of the keywords that I was ranking for that brought these visitors to me. 16 years ago, this was how Google Analytics was. But for more than a decade, Google took this away. Now it's back. It's like pretty awesome. So then I could even say, these are good keywords, but what pages did they go to on my website? And we could say, let's answer that question right here. So in the last 30 days, 5 people did a search for web design and SEO companies, and they came to this page. And unfortunately, 80% of them were a bounce because I don't offer web design. So these people didn't find what they were looking for. So on and so forth, but there's a long list of them here. And I think that's about all I got here, Claire. If you got any other questions or if you can think of any of them yourself.
Are a lot of questions. Okay, real quick, can you explain do follow and no follow again? When do you want to use which one?
So it's a trust thing. So you want do follow links and you want to give no follow links. You know what I mean? So just think of it as a pipeline with beef stew in it. So of course you want to get the meat and potatoes, but you don't want to give that to anybody. So let's say, all right, Claire, we're good friends, right? So, and I like you. So I'm maybe going to give you a do follow link. Somebody I just meet on the street that just says something, I'm just going to give you a no follow link, probably because because whoever that person is doesn't even know the difference. We can look at Ahrefs. I'll show you what that looks like real quick here. What other, you can run through your questions as
should we turn on breadcrumbs?
Yeah, if you want to. I guess it's kind of like a user thing. I guess the question is, does it make it easy for people? That's probably how I would answer it. If it works right in the design.
George wants to know if rank math really delivers on the hand holding it does.
I don't know. I haven't used it. Yeah. But when I make a new website, I was considering that I should try it just so that I get a little bit smarter. So he should check it out and get back to me.
All right. How do you check where you rank for specific keyword? You just search Google using that keyword and find yourself?
No, I don't know of a very good free way of doing that. I use Ahrefs to do that here. You could put the keywords in a list and you could watch them flow up or down and what pages are ranking and all those kind of things like that. If it's the local search result, I'll show you something cool here. So this is a report out of one of the local SEO tools. And so so Bruce Jones, SEO consultant, that's a second business of mine. I put that into the system and I said, where do I rank for SEO consultant? And this is the results. So where I'm at, which is in the middle of the map, happens to be number 2. But if we go a little bit farther south, I'm number 1. As there more competition, like downtown Chicago, I'm not in a position to get any visitors. But kind of the green ones, those I'm at the top. I'm in the middle of the pack here. I'm in the 3 map packs. The yellow ones I'm just right off of it, and then the red ones I'm nowhere listed for that particular keyword. But that's pretty cool, right? And then
What's the name of that tool?
Local Viking. It's a paid tool. Maybe you can set up a trial in the beginning. There's a couple other ones. There's also a Local Falcon, and about the only thing so Local Viking does a whole bunch of other stuff also beyond this. Local Falcon just does this, and you put money into a pot and you work off of a queue. So every time you run a report, you use up some of your spending. But that's pretty cool here. And so I'm glad I had a good example to show you.
And sort of pertaining to all these different services you've mentioned, they're all external to your website, right? They're not going to be plugins that slow your website down.
No, most of the time not, besides the Yoast plugin that's in there. There's some other ones, but like a redirection plugin, like if you change the URL on a blog post, what are you going to do about that? You kind of need a way of fixing that going through there like this.
Oh, Lori had a question about that.
Sure.
Lori, because you said that you should really only have 1 category per post.
Yep.
If she goes back and fixes that, will that mess up other things?
Well, I guess we should fix it. I would offer to help her a little bit because a couple other things should be done. One is we should also make sure that we're submitting the right site maps, and then we should go into Google Search Console and resubmit just those categories with the new content inside of it. Otherwise, Google Search Console might have information from 6 months ago, and it's still, so you changing it might not do anything without kind of shaking Google and telling them about it. And I'm happy to help with that. Right. Another part let me just kind of jump in with, talked about backlinks. So here's inside of Ahrefs, here's all the backlinks to my website sorted by the best ones at the top. So look at that. Elegant Themes is my best backlink, but too bad it's only a no follow link, right? So it doesn't really count so much. So how did I get that backlink? I just commented on one of their posts right there. So there's my backlink. So, I mean, you could get that backlink in 5 minutes, right? So then let's say, but I don't care about the no follow links. I just want the do follow links so I can filter them. And then the website that comes as part of Google My Business, that's my best backlink now. Here's a forum. Here's a link from MapQuest. Here's like UpCity, which happens to be just a directory that just says, I know that it's a do follow link. So if you were my client, I would make sure I'd add you to that list. So then that jumps over to my website. And on the right-hand side, I put a whole bunch of resources together. So here's citations. Here's all of them by score. Here's a list of over 100 SEO tools that don't cost anything. It's a long list. Places to get press releases submitted and it don't cost anything. All kinds of good stuff. All right, next question.
Okay. Have you ever worked with a one-page website? If so, were you able to get it ranked decently?
Oh, one?
A one-page website.
Oh, a one-page website?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess back in the day, but it's hard to do it like that. You need more foundation these days. It's in the day you could rank a 500 word article too, but you really can't anymore. So I guess I would say that it would be harder to do a one-page website these days, unless it was unless it was a keyword that there was no competition for.
Okay.
Yep.
And I have a very specific question from Stacy about a complicated situation.
All right.
So you're launching a new website and the site has old URLs
Yeah.
and they had a file name extension, like they ended in contact.php.
Mm-hmm.
So you write 301 redirects and you send that traffic to like /contact/.
Well,
Now,
they should be going to the most relative page, not just all of them to a page.
okay, but what if the client also wants to change the subdomain? Are you going to lose SEO? Are you going to lose SEO for changing the subdomain as well? Should you just change?
So when it comes to SEO, subdomains are new websites. So it's like if whatever backlinks to one subdomain and whatever SEO power is not given to your other one. So some people are like, I'm going to have my blog at blog.domain name. And it's like, well, then you essentially have two websites. You have your blog and you have your website. It'd be way better to have domain.com /blog. Now it's under the same domain or subdomain there.
So are you starting over when you have a new subdomain?
Yeah, I mean it's a new website essentially to Google. Yep. So I would think hard about having a subdomain. Only do it for when you have thousands of visits through there and it makes sense to subdivide it out of there or something like that. But it's just, or it's a totally off target thing. Maybe you have a job board on your website and it has nothing to do with your main content. All right, then maybe that makes sense to go off on a subdomain because you don't want those keywords diluting the power of your main keywords. Happy to walk through it there and help some people. Here's what I use for a plugin for doing the 301 redirects or whatever that is. So if your website, if you had this installed and turned on, and then it would automatically detect these old URLs, and then you could redirect them to the pages that are the correct new URLs. Sound good?
That sounds good.
Yeah. And Stacy, if you want to ever need a SEO help, I certainly could use design help.
Yeah, this is a client site, and he's a professor, so he works for a school. So his subdomain is through the university.
Okay.
And there's this really complicated like database mapping thing in part of it, and he wants to launch the rest of it right now, but we didn't want to move the thousands of traffic hits to his complicated parts. So that's why he suggested another subdomain, and I just wasn't sure, since we'd be redirecting every page anyway because it was already PHP, and we restructured all of the content completely, if throwing in the subdomain as part of that redirection was any more harmful than what we will already be doing.
I don't know. I guess it's a different bucket for sure.
It is,
in. So, but I'm happy to analyze it a little bit more. But I think it's I can't really give you a good answer.
Yeah, that's fine. I just
thought
I'd throw it out there. But thank you so much for all the info.
Yeah, I referred you the other day to somebody that was looking for a landing page designer. I don't know if you got a call from that within the last 2 weeks, but at least you was on the list.
If it was a call, I didn't answer.
Oh,
so I don't think I got
or
an
email or whatever. I don't know.
Okay, I will look out for that. Thank you.
Oh, it's too late now, so that means for whatever reason they didn't reach out to you. It's too much time has been passed. Any other questions there, Claire?
People wanting more hints. Oh wait, here's one from Tremi about multilingual. If you're setting up a multilingual site, should you do it where each language is on a subdomain, or you should do it where the language code is at the end of the URL in the directory?
Yeah, I don't really know exactly that answer, but I've seen people like here's one of my clients. So Momentum Coffee, this is what it ends up with. And to me, it's like, get that out of there. It's like, we don't want /en, you know what I mean? So if anybody's going to link to the content here, it's going to include, if you think of your website as like a flow chart, so there's the home page, but no one's ever going to link to the home page because it's already one step down in a organization chart because it says en after that. And then I guess I talked to them about it, and they were like, oh, but then it could be French and all the other languages like that. It's somehow some plugin or whatever on the back end does that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. There's also little plugins that you can put in, but then it uses Google Translate. And my wife's a French teacher, and she would like slap me if I tried to do that to anything that she had. She's translated some documents that companies in Canada where they wanted to have some of their content in French, some of it in English, and we just kind of built alternative pages in the other languages.
I've done a bunch of multilingual sites, so I could say that what I've seen is best practice used by the United Nations and so forth is putting doing the language suffix at the end of the URL, having English redirect to the raw URL, and having the other languages just stay there. And then, yeah, like you say, never use machine translation. Always use a human translation.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you have any more hints about getting backlinks, commenting on blogs, discussions on social media.
Yeah. All right. So this just to say, so let's go back to, I asked my website, there's a wealth of information through here. So if you read my blog post, and then there's going to be like, oh, here's how to use Google Trends. Here's a seminar you could sign up for. Here's how to optimize your Google My Business listing. All the way down to, where is it here? Sorry, there was a resource that I put together, I guess, longer time ago than I imagined. And it was all about how to get good backlinks if you're a web design company. I lost it here.
Well, I'd like to remind everyone that we're going to be posting this slide deck and the video once it processes on the Meetup site for this event and also on the Slack channel. If you would like to join our Slack channel, please comment in chat with your name and email address if you're not already a member of our Slack channel.
Yeah, I don't do much inside of Slack myself. I used it before, but so what goes on there? Is it something I can't live without?
Asking for plugin recommendations, complaining about things, asking for help, sort of thing.
Okay.
It's 8:00, Bruce, so you can stop talking if you like, or you can hang out and answer more questions.
I'm trying to find that one resource at least to show that. And if there's other questions, excuse me, if there's other questions, I'm happy to answer them too. Learning SEO, stay put. I'm sorry, I can't find that thing. All right, we'll just leave it be rather than me looking stupid. Keep looking through here. Oh, finally. Once I finally give up. I bet you. So these are all the directories that if you were a web design type of a company or a marketing company, I would make sure that I got a listing in each one of these things. Because you have to realize these guys are doing SEO hard and they're oftentimes at the top of the list. So if you're not there, you're nowhere in the running, you know, and most of it's like under Clutch. I'll show you an example here. SEO consultant, Chicago. There's the Google My Business listings, of course, and then there's Clutch. So who do you think gets most of the visits? Straight North, whoever the people are that are in the top of the list. I'm here somewhere, but a long ways down. And why am I a long ways down? Because I only got 9 reviews here, I think it is. Where's my reviews? There we go. So reviews are a ranking factor inside of this website. So if I got 5 more reviews, I'll probably bump up to, you know, a couple more spots up on top. When I had 0 reviews, I definitely was number 132 on this list. And so, but did you understand how I thought about, how I kind of found that answer out? It's not me telling you should be on Clutch. It's you doing a Google search for what you want to be number 1 for and finding out who is there. So that person, you can answer me this, Claire. That person that asked that question, what's her business? What would, just give me a good guess of whatever her keyword would be.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Was it I think that was a Key who asked that. Wait, no, or Lori. I've lost track. There's been a lot of chatter.
Okay, never mind.
Oh, sorry.
We'll use Nancy as an example. Maybe it's not even a good example here. Okay, so Nancy is a WordPress theme developer, right? And she's in Naperville or somewhere around Naperville. And what is the first organic listing? Upwork. So when everybody's doing this search, which is exactly what she does, whoever's coming up on this list is getting all the jobs. So then making sure that you're here, no matter what you are, makes sense. And maybe you might say like, but I make a whole lot more than these people. Maybe that's true. And then maybe that'll show that you're the best person to work with. Make sense?
Yeah, that's pretty logical.
All right. Yeah, sometimes people don't think of those little things like that, though.
It's like reverse engineering it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure out where you want to be and then figure out how to get there.
And see these little red dots, like the square dots? So this is a no follow link. So it's like I'm not giving up any link juice to send a link to these places, but I want to still be a reference to them. I still want you to go to these places, you know, to like, I want to put a link to there, but I don't want to give away any of my power. You know, if I made a deal with them, then I would take this no follow away. But without a deal, pretty much nobody's going to get a do follow link from me. Somebody just today sent me an email that says, oh, here, have this guest post and put it on your website. We talked about it in the past, and I did talk about that I would accept guest posts, and then buried in the middle of it is a Chicago SEO company, like one of my prime competitors. Like, I don't think so, dude. But he just slid it in there with, like, here's how to fix 404 errors. And it went to a page on his website. So you kind of have to be like a scientist with the stuff. Any other questions on your side there?
I think we've gotten through them all. Any of you have any more questions we haven't addressed? I think we're kind of winding down here.
All right. So then feel free, I would play around with Google Trends and do some different searches through there. There's a lot of eye-opening stuff inside of there. And I'll work on putting the, what do you call it? Putting the recording to here. Oh, I actually got to post. I got to post the blog. But I got to tune it up a little bit more here. There's even structured data information to fill out at the bottom, but I think it like froze. Oh, here we go. I don't know. We'll leave it be. Feel free to find me and just ask me any questions or schedule an hour of my time. I'm happy to share the knowledge that I have. The more that other people know about me, hopefully the farther my word will spread.
Thanks so much, Bruce. That's excellent information.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
All right. Let
Good night,
everybody go.
everyone.
Yep, see you later.